Tell me a little bit about your first couple months here as commander.
Well, it's been like a lot of other assignments where there's been a lot of learning, getting an idea, about the mission and the people and kind of where we've been, and then kind of assessing where we need to go in terms of the Air Force priorities. And it is a bit of an assessment period. What was challenging, in the first 2 months, especially for me, is I don't think I was ready for some of the travel. And you're trying to learn about the new organization where you're the commander and trying to get to know the people. And so a lot of the immersions, we call them, where you go in and get familiar with everything, took a little longer than what I would have liked due to travel requirements, but it's been great. We've gotten through all that, and we're full steam ahead in terms of what we're doing and where we're going.
What are some things that you learned in the first couple months about Robins and the installation and what ALC is doing and moving towards?
Well, I understood. I had a depot assignment before. I was a group commander out at the Ogden Air Logistics Complex at Hill Air Force Base in Utah. So being in a depot, our 3 Air Force depots, Ogden, Oklahoma City, and Warner Robins, they're engines of readiness and combat capability for our Air Force. Sustainment of all of our platforms relies on organic industrial capability, and so Robins, and I knew this coming in, plays a key fact in making sure that our weapon systems are combat ready and the warfighter has the readiness they need to execute their mission. Something that really surprised me about Middle Georgia that I had no idea about. I knew the community was very supportive of this installation, but the commitment to technology and advancing science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the commitment to advancing that and the educational partnerships with all of the institutions of higher learning in the area, with the University of Georgia, with Georgia Tech, with Mercer, in terms of engineering and software talent development, has been tremendous. And then with the local elected officials, just the amount of support and commitment to giving our installation and our depot everything we need to be successful, not only today, but in the future. And that's been very impressive. And one thing, and the other thing I'll say is, this is probably the most welcome we felt in any assignment over the years, and I've been in the Air Force 32 years. We've never felt more at home this soon anywhere else we've been.
Oh, we love to hear that. We definitely like to feel the welcome. So talk about your kind of plans as ALC commander, what you want to do, what you want to see out of your assignment here.
So we just finished last week what we called an offsite, where I sat down, the complex leadership, we all sat down together. That's the group directors and commanders. And so we all got together, after the assessment period, and kind of laid out 4 priorities. Number 1 is accomplish our mission, and that's providing combat capability and readiness for the warfighter each and every day. And that means what we have today, we have to sustain it for a fight tonight. The second priority is develop our team and our culture. And that's developing our personnel for the job and the workload for today, but also being mindful of the kinds of skills that are needed in the future, and also to develop them in terms of leadership and do a better job of career planning at where people can see advancement, and remove all the barriers. If there are any barriers, identify those and remove them within our organization, because our goal in the end for that is everybody ought to be able to maximize his or her potential every single day they come to work, and ought to see themselves in our future. Third, improving our processes. Processes are fundamental to everything we do. Everything has a process. We are very process oriented, because it has to be that way in aircraft maintenance and sustainment, because there's a right way to do things, and we want to be able to instill that in our workforce, but at the same time try to improve and capitalize on automation to make things better as we go, with an eye towards the future. And then fourth, prepare for the future. If you look at where the chief and the secretary are taking us, in terms of what modern weapon systems are going to look like. They'll be a little different from what we have today. Now, what we have today is very, very important for here and now, but as we transition into a service, as a service, and look at the future, you're going to see more capable, more high-end platforms that are more open architecture, that require a lot more software and maybe a little less hardware. And so that at the end of the chain or supply chain, it impacts the depot, and we have to be ready to support that workload if and when it comes.
Now, balancing the current workload with preparing for the future workload, obviously a tough task. What challenges do you see the ALC facing in that transition?
Well, first is the balancing, okay, and it's evaluating the different tools and process enhancements and capabilities that like robotics, okay, and Robins, we're one of the DoD leaders, you know, in the use of robotics in terms of our production. But evaluating that capability, is it relevant to the workload today? Can we utilize this? And is it scalable enough that we can use it into the future if and when, you know, when the future workload shows up? In terms of infrastructure, balancing today, like, you know, for instance, as an example, like if we built a hangar, you know, and we were looking at increasing, you know, and I'm just using this as an example, C-130 capacity, for instance, and we were looking at building an aircraft hangar for C-130 depot production, we would want to be able to, okay, we want the workload, we want the hangar to be able to accommodate C-130 workload, but we also want it to be flexible enough to accommodate other types of workload, you know, for the future. So it gives us more flexibility and more agility in terms of future workload. The other thing that is challenging, we're not immune, we're like the rest of America. You know, we hire just like corporate America does, and we've experienced some of the same hiring challenges that you've seen, that we've seen outside the fence line. So, you know, we are constantly trying to improve the way that we reach out and market, you know, careers in the depot, and, you know, show folks, hey, this is a great opportunity. You can have a career here in Warner Robins, and you can be here as long as you want.
Do you feel like Robins right now is at a shortage of workers like the rest of the country, or you're doing okay, but you're gonna need more? Where do you think Robins and the ALC falls in that?
We're hiring, and we've been hiring like for the last for 2 years straight, and the hiring is full tilt right now. We need aircraft mechanics, software engineers, mechanical engineers, you name it, pretty much, information technology professionals. We need them, and we're going to continue to hire and continue to market, and, you know, do the best we can.
Now, unlike, you know, corporate America or people outside of the fence, when they're short on workers, you know, things get tough and hard, but I mean, you guys still have a mission to do. You guys still have to get these warfighters ready. How does that play into how you're able to do your mission?
Well, it does. You know, when you look at you're capable of doing so much within the facilities and the personnel you have, but you're constantly trying to improve your processes. Like for last year, for example, we produced 7 more aircraft than we did in fiscal year 21, and we did it with 300 less people than we had in fiscal year 21. And when you look at that in terms of the production, how, you know, 300 less people than 21 than we had in 22, and we were able to outproduce the previous fiscal year. It comes down to process, and you try to find ways to make yourself more efficient, you know, to produce that combat capability for the warfighter.
And what are some of the ways that you think could still be streamlined, and some of the processes that could make, you know, the work even faster, or even better? We need to continue to embrace automation and robotics. We need to continue to develop our workforce, because if you have a mechanic that is trained and is highly skilled in more areas, it makes a worker more flexible than if they just focus in on one specific area. So it allows you to get more work done with the same amount of resources. And then when you look at robotics and some of the automation tools, it reduces error rates, and it's predictable in terms of process, which is what we're after, is predictability and reducing variability. And when people hear automation, people think like, oh gosh, replacing workers, but that's not really what we're talking about. It's more just making it easier for the workers.
It is. That's a very good point. Like when you look at some of the things that are out there, like laser depaint, where you can depaint an aircraft with a laser instead of chemical strip or a blast booth, instead of having a worker that's actually touching the aircraft, you've now got a worker who is monitoring a robot. It's the same. It's a similar process. You get the same end result, but you're taking the worker out of the waste stream. You're getting a more reliable, repeatable process, but the skills change a little bit in terms of what the worker looked like before versus what they're doing now in terms of robotics.
And you talked about how important it is to have that relationship with the schools in the community. I'm sure that plays a huge role in being able to get those kind of workers of the future.
Absolutely, and that's one of the great things about being here and being in Middle Georgia with all the partnerships with the institutions of higher learning. We have a software lab here in Warner Robins called Project Synergy, and we have a partnership with the Houston County Development Authority, and some of the local high schools do concurrent enrollment in there. We also do internships with the institutions of higher learning where they get exposed to some of the workload that we do, and they learn skills. And a lot of the people that came out of those internships and those types of programs, we've had a pretty good success rate of onboarding them into the complex. And with Blue Sky up in Macon is another partnership that we have with Mercer, and Mercer's been very, very supportive in terms of allowing us to recruit at their campus, but also sending us engineers and working with us to develop the next generation of software engineers and engineers writ large.
And when we talk about Robins, I feel like there's always new missions coming to Robins, which is a good thing. That's a great thing. But at what point, is there that tipping point where you say, okay, we still need workers, we're still working on the process automation, bringing on a new mission is tough?
It is, and you have to balance what we need to do today to fight tonight, but you have to do it with an eye towards the future. We're still going to do, the workload everybody's used to. That's going to continue, into the near term. But as you start looking at the kinds of weapon systems that are coming on in the future, you definitely have to start looking, and you try to make, okay, is the technology or the capability that we have today or that we want to bring in, can we use it today, and is it relevant for the future? I think that's the big trade-off that we wrestle with every day. And it's about preparing for the future, but getting everything done that we need to get done today.
Are there any missions kind of on the horizon that are in the works right now for Robins?
There's a lot of different discussion, but if and I think this is kind of common knowledge with the J-stars going away. There's going to be some workload associated with the air battle management family of systems, and it's going to come. It'll be a different kind of workload for us, where it's going to be more software, more engineering, more commodity driven, where it's more of a redistribution of workload. We're still doing the same number of hours. We're still going to have jobs, but there's not going to be a J-stars line, and it's just going to be more or less a redistribution of workload.
Okay, do you think that's going to make it easier in the redistribution process, or there's going to be some challenges along the way as you figure that process out?
Well, I'm sure there's going to be challenges along the way, but challenges for us, opportunities, and there's going to be something that we didn't plan for. There always is when you look at taking workload away and then bringing on new workload, but it's learning from it, capitalizing on the opportunity, and then moving forward.
Do you think there's any workloads that will move out of Robins at any point to help transition that, or?
That's up to there's folks in the Pentagon that are a lot smarter than me that make those force structure decisions, and a lot of those decisions are going to be made, and the chief and our chief and secretary have been very, very clear. The force we have today is not going to be good enough for tomorrow in terms of peer competition, and so I'm sure there's going to be changes. I just don't know what they are, because we're at the point where we take our demand signal from the workforce, from the programmers and planners that look at those kinds of capabilities in the context of peer competition.